Hey everyone, Lee here from the 3D Modeler. Welcome back. In part 3 of our Victorian Facade series in 3ds Max, we wrapped up the modeling of the pilaster. Now, in part 4, we will begin modeling the segmented arched windows, an elegant feature that will add character to our Victorian facade. So, without further ado, let's dive in. Now, we are in 3ds Max, and as you can see, I have already created a reference guide that will help us precisely place the elements of our Victorian facade. With that said, I have also gathered our custom profiles we created in previous parts for our pilaster. Now let's group them into a single group for easy management and a cleaner workflow. And by the way, if you would like to learn how we created this pilaster, feel free to check out the previous parts of our series. I have left the links for you in the description below. Now, with our custom profile selected, from the menu bar, let's click on Group, then select Group. Now we have grouped our custom profiles into a single group. Next, let's open the Layer Explorer by clicking on its icon here in the toolbar. And with our group selected, let's click on this icon here to create a new layer. Let's call it Profiles. Now we have created a new layer containing our custom profiles. And for a cleaner workflow, let's hide our profile layer by clicking on the eye icon next to it. And to reactivate our default layer, let's click on this icon here next to the default layer, so that any new object created will be added to this layer. Now let's close our Layer Explorer. Now let's put our reference guide into action by using it to precisely mirror our pilaster to the left side of our Victorian facade. And to do so with our pilaster selected from the hierarchy panel, let's enable Effect Pivot Only. This will activate the gizmo of our pilaster. Now let's enable the Move tool by pressing shortcut W, and let's also enable the Snap tool by pressing shortcut S. Now let's move our gizmo until it is snapped with the center of our reference guide. Now we are sure that the gizmo of our pilaster is perfectly aligned with the center of our reference guide. Now let's deactivate our gizmo. Next, let's enable the mirror tool by clicking on its icon here in the toolbar. And as you can see, we are going to mirror our object in the x-axis, and it will be mirrored as an instance. Then press OK. And as you can see, now we have finished creating the left and the right pilasters of our Victorian facade. Now, let's isolate our reference image by selecting it. Then press Alt plus Q to enter the isolation mode. We are going to divide the segmented arched windows area into clear modeling sections to keep our workflow organized and efficient. These sections include the cornice molding, the dado molding, the pilasters, the segmented arched windows, and finally the door. Each section will be modeled separately for precision and flexibility during later stages. We'll start with the cornice molding, so let's jump right into the modeling process. To exit the isolation mode, let's click on this icon here in the status bar. Now let's zoom in on the capital of our pilaster using the zoom region tool. Now I want to open the pilaster group, so with our pilaster selected, from the menu bar, click on Group, then select Open. Now we have opened the pilaster group. As you can see at the top of the capital, we have a cornice molding element which intersects with the ornamental element. We want to extend this molding so that it intersects with the keystones of the segmented arched windows and connects to the pilasters in that area. By doing so, we will split our cornice molding into two parts. The bottom part, which is the cornice molding element extended from our capital, and the top part, which we will trace from our concept design. And to create the bottom part, first let's unhide the profiles layer. So let's open the Layer Explorer. Let's unhide the profiles layer. Select the profile group from Group, Open. Then let's select this custom profile used to create the base element of the crown. Shift drag to make a copy. With our new custom profile selected, let's click on this icon here to add it to the active layer. Now let's hide the profiles layer and close the layer explorer. We will use this custom profile to extract the cornice molding element we want to extend. So with our custom profile selected, press 1 to enable the vertex editing mode. Now let's select these vertices, press delete to delete them. Now let's select this vertex and let's align it with this vertex. Now I want to connect these two vertices with a segment, and to do so, we will use the connect tool. To enable the connect tool, right click and choose connect. Now let's connect this vertex with this vertex. Now we have closed our spline, and by doing so, we have finished creating the profile of the bottom part of our cornice molding. And for a cleaner setup, let's center the profile pivot. So with our profile selected from the hierarchy panel, let's enable affect pivot only. Then let's click on center to object. Now we have centered the profile pivot. Now, to create the bottom part of our cornice molding, we will use a bevel profile on a 2D shape. And the 2D shape in our case will be a line segment. So let's zoom out. Let's enable the line tool from the shapes tab. And let's create a horizontal line like this. Now, let's align our 2D shape with the top of our capital. And to do so, with our 2D shape selected, let's enable the align tool by clicking on its icon here in the toolbar, and let's click on our capital. First, I will align the center of our 2D shape with the center of our capital in the XYZ direction and press OK. Then let's enable the align tool again and let's click on our capital. Now I want to align our 2D shape with our capital in the Y direction, and I will align the center of our 2D shape with the maximum of our capital. Press OK. And as you can see, now we have perfectly aligned our 2D shape with the top of our capital. Now, let's adjust the position of our 2D shape and snap it to the center of our reference guide. Let's enable the vertex editing mode by pressing shortcut 1. And let's extend our 2D shape between our pilasters, like this. Now, let's apply our bevel profile. Under parameters, choose classic, pick profile, and let's pick our custom profile. As you can see, we still need to make some adjustments, so let's select our custom profile, press Z to zoom in, press 1 to enable the vertex editing mode. Now I want to change the location of the first vertex from this corner to this corner, so let's select this vertex, right click, and make first. Now let's exit the vertex editing mode and let's zoom out. Now let's select our bottom part, go to the left view, and let's activate the bevel profile gizmo by pressing shortcut 1. And let's rotate it 90 degrees around the y-axis like this, and then 180 degrees around the x-axis. Now let's change the color of the bottom part to the yellow color. And let's jump to the perspective view. And as you can see, now we have finished creating the bottom part of our cornice molding. Take the front view. Now let's create the top part of our cornice molding, and we'll do so by tracing it from our concept design, specifically from that corner. So let's use the zoom region tool to zoom in on that corner. Then let's select our reference image and the base element of our capital. Press Alt plus Q to isolate them. Now let's roughly trace the outline of our cornice molding. So let's enable the line tool from the shapes tab and let's start the rough tracing. Now, let's refine our rough profile. Now, we have finished creating the custom profile of the top part of our cornice molding. Next, we need to create the 2D shape for the top part. But first, we need to create the extension above the capital so that our custom profile will wrap around it. And to do so, let's enable the rectangle tool from the Shapes tab, and let's create a new rectangular spline by snapping it between these two vertices. Now let's copy the width and paste it in the lens. Now we have created a perfect square shape. Let's rotate it 90 degrees around the x-axis like this. Now we want to make sure that our square shape is perfectly aligned with the center of our capital. So let's enable the align tool, and let's click on our capital, and we'll align the center of our square shape with the center of our capital in the XYZ direction. Press OK. Now let's snap it to the top of our capital. Let's apply a shell modifier to our square shape. Then let's apply an editable poly modifier to it. Let's enable the vertex editing mode, and let's adjust the height of our extension to be the same as the height of our custom profile. Like this. Now we have finished creating the extension above our capital. And before creating our 2D shape, we need to make some adjustment to our custom profile. So let's select our custom profile, Alt plus Q to isolate it, Z to zoom in, press 1 to enable the vertex editing mode. Now I want to change the location of the first vertex from this corner to this corner. So let's select this vertex, right click and make first. Now we have finished adjusting our custom profile, and we are ready to create the 2D shape for the top part of our cornice molding. And to create our 2D shape, let's select our extension, Alt key to isolate it, press T to switch to the top view, press 2 to enable the edge editing mode. Now let's select these group of edges, right click and connect. Now we have connected them at the center. Now let's create our 2D shape. So let's enable the line tool from the Shapes tab, and with the snap tool enabled, let's start creating our 2D shape. Now we have finished creating our 2D shape. Let's switch to the front view, and let's adjust the position of our 2D shape like this. Let's exit the isolation mode. Now let's apply the bevel profile. The parameters, choose classic, and let's pick our custom profile. Now let's switch to the perspective view, and as you can see, now we have finished creating the top part of our cornice molding. Let's change its color to the yellow color. Switch back to the front view, and let's activate the line layer, and let's press 1 to enable the vertex editing mode, and let's adjust the position of this vertex to align with the center of our reference guide. Then let's enable the effect pivot only from the hierarchy panel, and let's adjust the position of the gizmo to align with the center of our reference guide like this. Now let's mirror our object using the mirror tool. and we will mirror our object in the x-axis, and it will be mirrored as an instance. Press OK. And as you can see, let's switch to the perspective view. We have finished creating the top part and the bottom part of our cornice molding, and by doing so, our cornice molding is done. A quick note. As you can see, our reference guide is divided into 3 equal sections. Unlike our concept design, since it's an AI-generated design, we need to interpret and improvise to achieve architecture accuracy. And since it isn't a stylized facade, so we have to stick close to architecture precision. Now, let's create the dado modeling section. So let's zoom in on this section using the zoom region tool like this. We will divide this section into 2 parts, the dado molding and the cornice trim. Let's start by modeling the dado molding. And as usual, we'll start modeling the dado molding by creating a custom profile. So let's zoom in on that corner and let's trace its outline using the line tool. Now we have finished creating our rough profile. I will refine it off camera and I will be right back with our refined custom profile. And by the way, if you would like to learn about the spline editing techniques we use to refine our rough spline, feel free to check out part 1 of our series. I have left the link for you in the description below. We are back with the refined custom profile of the dado molding, and as you can see, I have also finished creating the custom profile of the cornice trim. Now let's exit the isolation mode by clicking this icon here in the status bar. Let's zoom out and let's start creating the 2D shape for the dado molding. First, let's create a rectangular spline representing the raised part of our dado molding. And to do so, from the Shapes tab, let's enable the Rectangle tool and let's create a rectangular spline with dimensions 15 by 36. Now, let's rotate it 90 degrees around the x-axis like this. And then let's enable the Snap tool and let's align it to the bottom of our base molding like this. Now, let's adjust its position to align with its position in our reference guide. Hold Shift and drag to make a copy. Now we have created a rectangular spline which will represent the second raised part of our dado molding. Let's align it to its position in our reference guide like this. Now we are ready to create the 2D shape for our dado molding. Now let's select both rectangles, press Alt plus Q to enter the isolation mode, press T to switch to the top view. Now let's enable the line tool and let's start creating our 2D shape. As you can see, I'm wrapping our line spline around our reference rectangles. Now we have finished creating the 2D shape for our dado. Let's exit the isolation mode. From the modify panel, let's apply the bevel profile modifier. Under parameters, choose classic and let's pick our custom profile for the dado. As you can see, we still need to make some adjustments, so let's zoom in using the shortcut Z. Let's activate the bevel profile gizmo by pressing shortcut 1 and let's rotate it 180 degrees around the y-axis like this. Now let's switch to the perspective view by pressing shortcut P and let's adjust the position of our dado like this. Let's change its color to the yellow color. And as you can see, now we have finished creating the dado molding. Now let's create the cornice trim. And since we have already created its custom profile, we still need to create its 2D shape. And to do so, let's select our dado. Let's jump to the perspective view by pressing shortcut P. And as you can see, our cornice trim will follow the top edge border of our dado. So we need to create a 2D shape that follows this border. And to do so, with our dado selected, let's apply an editable poly modifier to it. Let's enable the edge editing mode. Then let's double click on this edge to select this edge loop, which represent the top edge border. Then right click and create shape. Choose linear, press OK. Now we have created a spline with the same shape as our 2D shape, but we won't use it because it may or may not cause issues when applying a bevel profile modifier to it. So we will manually create a 2D shape using the line tool, which follows the contour of our spline. So let's isolate our spline. Let's jump to the top view using the shortcut T. Let's enable the line tool and let's enable the snap tool by pressing shortcut S. Now let's start tracing the contour of our spline to create our 2D shape. Now we have finished creating the 2D shape for our cornice trim. Now press Ctrl+I for inverse selection. Let's delete our spline and let's select our 2D shape. Let's apply a bevel profile modifier to it. Under parameters, choose classic and let's pick the custom profile of our cornice trim. As you can see, we still need to make some adjustment. Let's activate the gizmo of the bevel profile modifier. Let's rotate it 180 degrees around the y-axis. Like this. Then let's jump to the perspective view. Let's change its color to the yellow color. And let's select both the dado and the cornice and let's adjust their position like this. And as you can see, now we have finished creating our cornice trim. Now let's create the panel moldings of the dado. But first, let's select our reference image, press Alt+Q to isolate it. As you can see, the dado molding contains recessed panel moldings. So let's start by creating the recessed areas that will contain these panels. So let's exit the isolation mode and let's select our dado molding. First, let's make sure that the dado molding starts at the boundary of the base molding. So let's activate the line layer. Then let's enable the vertex editing mode. Then let's enable the snap tool by pressing shortcut S. Now let's adjust the position of this vertex and snap it to the boundary of our base molding like this. Now let's jump to the perspective view and start creating our recessed areas. First, let's enable the polygon editing mode by pressing shortcut 4. Now let's select this polygon, hold Ctrl and select this one to select both. Now let's insert them. So right click, insert, and the amount of insertion will be 6 centimeters. Press OK. Now we want to extrude them inward. So right click, extrude, and the amount of extrusion will be -2 centimeters. Press OK. Now let's select this polygon, hold Ctrl, select this one. Let's insert them. So right click, insert, and the amount of insertion will be 5 centimeters. Then right click, let's extrude them inward, and the amount of extrusion will be -2 centimeters. Now we have finished creating the recessed areas. Now let's create the 2D shapes for our panel moldings. The 2D shape for our panel molding will be a rectangular spline that follows the border of the recessed area. And to do so, let's switch to the front view and let's zoom in on our dado. Now let's enable the rectangle tool from the shapes tab and let's start creating a new rectangular spline by snapping it to the corners of the recessed area, like this. Let's repeat the same process to all recessed areas. Now we have finished creating the 2D shapes for our panel moldings. Let's zoom out. Since we are going to use the same custom profiles of the panel moldings of the polyester, let's open the layer explorer. Let's unhide the profiles layer and let's zoom in. As you can see, this custom profile will be used for the panels of the raised part of our dado, and this custom profile will be used for the panels of the recessed parts of the dado. We will call this profile 1 and this profile 2. Let's zoom out. Now let's select our first 2D shape. Let's apply a bevel profile modifier to it. Let's close the layer explorer. Under parameters, choose classic and let's pick profile 1. Now let's zoom in. Let's activate the gizmo of the bevel profile modifier by pressing shortcut 1. Let's rotate it 180 degrees around the z-axis. Now let's switch to the perspective view and let's change its color to the yellow color. Yes. Now let's drag and drop to the second 2D shape. Now we have finished creating the panel moldings for the raised parts of our dado molding. Let's change its color also to the yellow color. Then let's drag and drop our bevel profile modifier to this 2D shape. But now let's switch to the front view and let's pick profile 2. Back to the perspective view, drag and drop our bevel profile modifier to the last 2D shape. Let's select both of them and change their color to the yellow color. And now, as you can see, we have finished creating the panel moldings for our dado molding. And by finishing the panel moldings, our dado modeling section is complete. Let's switch to the front view. That's a wrap for part 4. If you enjoyed it, show some love by liking, commenting, and subscribing. Your support means the world to me and keep me inspired to create even more awesome content for you. Can't wait to see you in part 5 to continue modeling our segmented archiduentas. Thanks for watching.